Secret friends, unite!
One. Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 506. This is your guide to Geek Side, and I'm one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra. Just survived the Christmas fun. My mom was here for a week, and then she went back to Michigan. We got some sun and got some really fun gifts this year.
Nice.
Great time, just having a good time. So it was definitely an enjoyable Christmas party. Not party, but, you know. And then I got Johnny Five, Charlie, little Lego build.
They're trying to bring him back. Well, that's good about your mom. You know what do they always say about laundry and relatives staying with you? It's good to change both of them after 3 days.
Well, actually, my mom got cheated out of 2 days because her first trip was she was supposed to land in Minneapolis at 11 and at night. And the trip out of Flint, the plane was delayed because of a maintenance thing. And then they said, well, we can get you to Chicago at 11. He goes, well, am I just going to sleep in Chicago then? Are you getting me a room? Because my flight will have already been gone for 2 hours. So ridiculous. And as soon as they could get her back in. But it was a great visit. We had a great time. Nice. So it was always great to see my mom. She is a low maintenance guest, the best you could hope for.
I hear. Yeah, it reminds me of my dad. He's very much the same way. It's the Beautiful Stranger from the Beautiful Stranger song of Bob Seger, the perfect guest, perfect lodger or perfect guest. Anyway, we got a great show for you today. As always, we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest, but we always start the show off by talking about our fantastic Patreons, the folks that make it possible for us to do all this fun extra content, exclusive shows, no ads, shows without advertisements, shows that drop early, etc., and access to a special Discord channel for as little as $2 a month after trying us out for 7 days for free, which we've actually had some folks do that lately, which is totally awesome. It is also available as a gift. I know Christmas has passed us by, but if you've got that geek in your life who has a birthday coming up or some other special occasion, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite/gift, I'm assuming, because it went off my screen. Is that what that says? That is what that says. Very good. I'm trying this new split screen thing, so I'm always looking at the camera. So always trying to improve. These fine folks are our patrons. They already know what's going on. My buddy Derek Trevelyan, the figure dude. Francie, lovely lady who does my wife's hair and loves our bad movie Patreon show that April and I do. Luke Lohr, Mr. Xbox Expansion Pass. My awesome Uncle Tim. Also John Sedorf, the wonderful Phoenix Sisters Entertainment, our friends Kelly and Crayley. A little bit more about that in a second. Brendan Myers, Corey and HD, Matthew Keel, very important friend of the show, Kurt Krug, who has helped us out exponentially, bringing in new folks for our Spotlight program. And we got kind of a twofer here. We have Tanya, whose name I mispronounced a bunch of times last week when she was on Code 47. She guested with Peter and myself to talk about Star Trek. Tanya Lee, who lives down in Alabama, is now listening to our stuff. Wonderful guest, great lady. And we're really happy to have you jump on board and try some of our bonus content. So 248. And lastly, but not leastly, the wonderful, nice family of the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry. How's our friend Sean doing? We know that he's been having some ouchie time.
Yeah, his cervical discs in his neck are getting better. He's doing physical therapy for that. And with that, Sean and I have had a couple of weeks off just because of everything going on with our fantasy football podcast. We are going to wrap that up this week because all the leagues will be ending. So we'll be doing that, recording on that on Tuesday, and we'll get that out to everybody on Wednesday. So it'll be a fun wrap up of a new show we did. So that will be fun. And maybe extend the season into the playoffs a little bit by doing something a little bit fun to hopefully engage our Patreon Discord members. We'll see how that goes.
All right. And we have a special announcement, and you volunteered to take the reins. This is for our friend Kelly and something that she's working on. So take it away.
Yeah. So we love to help people, with the charities they are passionate about. And that is something that Kelly is really passionate about. She's been a big supporter of our show. I've seen her at a couple of cons. She is a big cosplayer and author. And she is working with the Multiverse fundraiser, Virtual Con-a-thon. and charity fundraiser all railed into one package. This year, we've teamed up with Comic Books for Kids, a charity providing child-friendly comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. to raise funds for their cause. On January 24th to the 26th, they will have both pre-recorded and live Comic-Con style content, and who includes celebrity comic and writing guests that include Creek Wilson, Leah Williams, Jerry Gaylord, John Cosper, and more. Visit the Multiverse fundraiser.com for more information and instructions on how to both tune and contribute. We'll have that information in our show notes. So if you missed it, you don't have to write it down on a notepad or something like that. You can just click the link and participate. So thank you, Kelly, for doing something really cool for people in need.
Absolutely. All right. Well, moving right along, it's funny. Todd and I had a great conversation with Tom DeFalco over the weekend. Tom DeFalco, one of the most important guys in mainstream comics, huge at Marvel in his time. But we learned that he got his start with Archie Comics. And we have an Archie comic, or at least a publication of Archie Comics, to talk about today. This is issue number 6 of The Adventures of Kool-Aid Man. This is from 1989. I figured this would be from the 70s or so. I don't know. I don't know when Kool-Aid Man came along. Kool-Aid Man is probably my favorite mascot of any kind. He's my guy. I love him. But anyway, in this very busy cover, we have our Kool-Aid Man with 3 ice cubes. I don't know. I don't know if that's typical. I have him as a pop. I think he's upstairs, but I don't think he has any ice cubes. He's just kind of a red gelatinous mass.
But we don't really know if Kool-Aid Man is if the liquid is him, like it's his internal fluids, like he needs that to live. If the ice cubes are like his cooling system, we really don't know.
It could be his
brain.
We don't know.
Like,
those are his brain cells.
It anyway, could be.
He is standing in front of an edifice known as the Wacky Warehouse, which... No, okay, there's a purple dinosaur behind it. I thought the dinosaur was the building. And the edifice, which is kind of wavy.
Kelly, you know who that is?
Who is it? Grape Ape?
Purplesaurus Rex.
Purplesaurus Rex.
Yes.
Part of the Grape Ape family, separated by evolution. But anyway, standing in front of a very unstable looking edifice of varying colors with such departments as the Chill Grill and Parents Pen and an entrance. It looks like this might kind of like be the TARDIS from Doctor Who, like it's bigger on the inside, because there are just people streaming out of it. And our guy who is wearing, he's wearing board shorts, and he says, "Hey kids, my wacky new flavor is ready. Now we have to name it." And Purplesaurus Rex has a palm tree in his mouth. And there's a dude at the end of it who's yellow in red sneakers, wearing one of those like 80s hoodlum pair of glasses, and his thought bubble says, roast my toast. You'll never get to name that new flavor, Kool-Aid Man. Setting up the obvious intrigue that is to follow within this comic. Now, and all the characters that are streaming out have the very typical Archie Comics looking drawn kind of face. So I got drawn by Dan DiCarlo is signed at the bottom of the piece. So there's a lot going on here. Let's tot a comic. What happens in this comic?
Oh, Charlie, as any comic book character has a hero, there must be a villain. That villain's name is Storch.
Oh,
sorry, Scorch. Storch.
Brad Storch?
Yes, Larry Storch. No, Scorch is the villain. He's kind of like the cookie crook in all those you've just got a villain. So he is basically there to stop Kool-Aid Man from getting people to be satisfy their thirst. Scorch makes you hot, and he wants you to just die of heat stroke. So
Scorch, how could you?
He's not very nice. But yeah, they were about to name this new wonderful flavor they were making in the Kool-Aid lab with the kids that do look like Archie characters. But unfortunately, he was about to get out of the lab, and he went through this fantastical place that led him to prehistoric times. And that allowed them to run into the dinosaur in name. And they decided then, because the dinosaur helped them defeat Scorch, that they would name the flavor after Purplesaurus Rex. So it's kind of like an origin story.
The Scorch Trials. Oh, the Scorch Trials. Maybe that's really where that movie came from. What's that? What was
maybe
it? The Maze Runner. I remember. I feel like and it had that kid who ended up being Dan Aykroyd in the Saturday Night Live movie that just came out with the big mustache. See,
I wonder how many issues this comic got. It would be interesting to, understand how this got started. We know the Big Boy comic, they just would give it away. But if you wanted to, you could apparently buy it or get maybe sent to you for like 75 cents. So I don't know if it's the same thing, but I just did not see an audience for the further adventures of Cool Ed Men.
No, it does not appear to be the case. But somewhat, speaking of audiences and drawing a crowd, someone who never fails to do that is our senior news correspondent, Madam Webb. She's been with us for an awfully long time. She's about to hang another year on the line. January 1st is about to come up. She's hitting 1.25 centuries. Very exciting, but she's always on top of things. Currently down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine with the latest news and scoops for us. Let's do it.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's Rumors and News. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Thank you for bringing your rumors and news for 10 years to our show, Madam Webb. And with that, there's been a lot of strike talks, labor wars. Never. But remember, Madam Webb, you signed a 100-year exclusive deal. You wouldn't join a union. You keep the same wages, and then you would also knit us scarves every year. And quite honestly, I've yet to receive a scarf. So if anybody's got some leverage over you, Madam Webb, it's me and Charlie.
I feel like we got that scarf the first year is kind of like, oh, this will be a regular thing. And then I have 9 scarves owned to me. So I'm not happy about that. Anyway, let's talk about some news. Do we have Trouble in Paradise already? We were already reveling in that awesome Superman trailer a couple weeks ago. A lot of enthusiasm. The Creature Commandos cartoon is out on Max. I watched the first couple. It's a weekly release, right? Is it still coming out?
Weekly drop. Yep.
Okay,
weekly drop.
Gotcha. So I need to catch back up with that. But Trouble in Paradise, because it looks like the Batman Part 2, and I guess this is where I get a little confused, because I didn't really think this was a part of James Gunn thing. I thought we were going to have 2 different Batmen, but maybe this article will elucidate.
He runs DC. More. He runs DC films now.
Oh, gotcha. So he even is controlling the multiversal bit. So even though this
anything with DC characters, it goes for him.
He's the guy. But yes, says this could be delayed. He also tells us, hey, don't worry about it. Calm down. He was doing a lot of this, I think, if I saw him in a video clip. But yeah, pushed out another year from a 2026 drop. So what's going on with that, Todd? Why are they doing this to us? Blah!
Because there's not a finished script yet.
Oh yeah, that is a complication.
Oh, it's a secret. What do we know? No, James Gunn said there's not a finished script yet. And at this point, he has basically said unless he's got a finished script and it looks good, he's just not going to rush a film. And that is the smartest approach because
it's
a stinker is always a stinker. A bad script can become a good script, or a bad script can be dumped and a new script can be created. So at this point, that's where they're at. And he basically said, it's not done yet. Gunn said specifically, the first draft isn't even done yet as of December 13th. So if the first draft isn't done, that is just typically a starting point. Notes are given, everything gets tightened up. You got to figure out what that budget would cost based on the script. And he makes an interesting point. He's like, this is going to be 5 years. Originally, this was supposed to come out in 2025. Then was 2026. Now it's 2027. He goes, to be fair, a 5-year gap or more is fairly common in sequels. 7 years between Alien and Aliens, 14 years between Incredibles, 7 years between the first 2 Terminators, 13 years between Avatars, 36 years between Top Guns, and of course, 6 years between Guardians Volume 2 and 3. So, a rushed movie is rarely a good movie. So
I think it's kind of symptomatic of the content everywhere now that everybody, we've all lost our ability to savor anything. So we're just like, well, let's get on to when we have What If, which dropped 8 days in a row with 8 little micro movies. Everybody's like, why can't we have more content? Why can't something come out every year or every 6 months? Where movies used to, when you had a successful low budget movie, great example, we'll go back to our segment about the Canon films. Remember Breakin'? which came out in early 1984. Breakin' 2 came out at the end of 1984. So they were like, yeah, I know, because they made it for like 50 cents. There's no budget to that movie. You know what I'm saying? So
and no plot.
And no plot. No
anything.
Well, yeah, like I said, yeah, with Golan and Globus
filming.
They're like, yeah, let me turn the camera on, and the guy will walk around over there. So, but when it comes to something like this with hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on these big films, if they don't get it right, it's going to turn into, The Flash all over again. You know what I mean? So they have so much more to lose if they screw it up. So to me, it's easy to understand why they've got to slow their roll. You know what I mean? So I get it. I totally get it. I do love how he throws in there Top Gun, like that 36-year gap was planned. Oh, we got another 10 years to wait. Sorry, it was a shot in the dark that worked out. So that's kind of funny to throw that in.
I'm guessing what he's trying to get at is like a successful movie can stand alone despite the gap between the movies. Agreed. I mean, Charlie, everybody's sweating bullets that, the next Fast and Furious film, because it's not coming out like 2 years later, isn't going to be a banger.
I know. I can't handle the suspense. It was funny. I was having lunch with our mutual friend, John, who's in Michigan for Christmas. And we were talking about terrible movies. And we started talking about the Fast and Furious. And he's like, well, I think I have to finally buckle down and watch them. I said, all I can tell you is they get progressively stupider. It's like watching Homer Simpson from season to season on The Simpsons. Remember that the clip show one that we talked about? I think Homer gets stupider every season. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's they're not spacing the Fast and Furious movies out because they're really looking on, we got to create a great finale that's just going to blow everybody's expectations. There are no expectations because there's nothing to care about. It's going to be dreadful. It just is. Just is what it is.
It's funny because Robert Pattinson has even said by the time this trilogy gets done, I'm going to be collecting retirement. I'm like, you know what? That would be kind of fun. They showed like a picture of him as like Batman Beyond, like old Bruce Wayne. Yeah. And that would be kind of cool if he came back in his later years and became like aged Bruce Wayne. Or even Michael Keaton could be Batman Beyond. I think it would be fun to go back and revisit that idea.
Yeah. That was the only thing I found redeemable about that Flash movie was Michael Keaton. And I think everybody really wanted that to carry the film. But anyway, not to dwell too much on DC. Moving right along, it was funny. This was a post that I shared a couple of years ago in the main in the Geekies today. We're going to talk about Nosferatu, which was directed by a director that I was I think otherwise unfamiliar with, though tell me differently if this guy directed that thing, but Robert Eggers is his name, and he is taking on the 1986 cult classic shaped your childhood film Labyrinth. And I'm like, is he going to dollars to donuts, the Goblin King is definitely going to be Skarsgård, right? Because isn't he just, look how great he did as Count Orlok, you know what I mean? So Todd, where do you land with Labyrinth? I know people who are so crazy about it that it's like the end all be all.
It's a movie I haven't revisited since my youth. It's one of those movies that always gets thrown around, like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, all these movies where they're a little dark. It's a Jim Henson production, so beautiful, kind of full of whimsy, but also darkness. The fact that David Bowie played the Goblin King. And, at that point, he added whimsy. There was a song called Dance Pants, which, it's really weird to begin with, but a girl, basically her brother gets stolen by the Goblin King because she's kind of pissed off at watching him. So that happens. So she has to go through Labyrinth to get him. And apparently there has been a sequel that was written about basically the kid does grow up to become the Goblin King, which is interesting. Yeah, so maybe that's what it would be about. But it is kind of weird because we talk about if there's a sequel or reboot, it's probably at that point, the movie is going to probably be around 40 years old. So
at the soonest, because we're about to put 2025 on the line. So that would 1986. So I'm
not opposed to it. And Eggers, he directed The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, and the Nosferatu. So he has successly done movies that are small that have played well to bigger audiences, been dark. So I think if he's going to reinvent it and they still make it kid friendly, that could be kind of cool. I liked it. And he did do a short film based on Hansel and Gretel, one on the Telltale Heart. So that's kind of neat. He's done some fairy tale like things. So
Nice.
I'm all in. I like him. He's a good director.
Yeah,
and he's going to write it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. You gave me a new link here, but it was a story we just talked about. All right. Well, moving on. Did we talk about this film a couple weeks ago? Sinners, which is Ryan Coogler's new film, and it does this have what's his face? Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan,
Michael
right?
B. Jordan, yeah. Does it
have him playing twinsies? Isn't he hugging himself?
He is playing twins. Yeah. It's set in I would say the 30s in America. Apparently, looks like he is a returning war vet of some war, whether it's World War I, and he comes back to his hometown. It looks like, and he's kind of a bootlegger type of guy.
Yeah.
So maybe you think of it's 20s, where you think of the Great Depression, those type of things, and he's coming back to this town, and something evil is now there. So basically, it's kind of a premise about all of his family friends get trapped in a house or a club, and something is evil is coming together. I like this because I think Ryan Coogler has been a great director. He's done great things with Michael B. Jordan. I thought they were having a tiff because Coogler left the Creed movies and Michael B. Jordan took it over. So I wasn't sure if that was a riff or it was just oh no, I'm done with that and now you pick it up. So that's kind of cool. But it looks good. It looks seasonal. It's interesting to play twins. I mean, we've seen that in a couple of things. With the most recent one was Sonic, where Jim Carrey was playing both two versions of himself, which was hilarious. Worked well. The technology is a lot better than it was in certain things where it was horrible. Time Cop? I'm trying to remember the other movies where two versions of themselves. So,
well, I remember it was going back to the 60s, but an early episode of the old Star Trek where there were two Kirks, and they just would always film it from a distance, or you saw the back of the one's head. You know what I mean? So it's just photographic fakery. Where with this, we've come so far with CGI that you just recreate. So and there's also an equal opportunity that at some point one of the two of them gets killed off. So it's they have to spend that much time kind of dwelling in that. So that's cool. March, I see March 7th is that coming up. So we're kind of in that first quarter, loosey goosey where horror has worked out well in recent years before we get into the hard charging to the summertime. So that's awesome. So speaking about charging or swinging, if you would prefer, web swinging, if you would prefer, not that kind of swinging. I saw where Todd's eyes went. He's a dirty boy. Just not, but we've been hearing about this project for 2 or 3 years. Oh my. This would be the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. This is obviously going to be on Disney Plus. And watching the trailer, I knew for a fact already that Tom Holland wasn't going to be involved in voicing Peter Parker, because I'm sure that Disney doesn't want to burn up whatever engagements they have. It's kind of like they have a Tom Holland punch card. You know what I mean? You only get it for 7 thing, click. They don't want to, use this project for one of them. So
especially on a TV series, where
exactly.
It's essentially lower stakes, no box office.
Right. So they have an actor named Hudson Thames as Peter Parker, who is aping it to sound just like Tom Holland. So it leaves me with the overall impression that this is set in the MCU. It's not a different world, maybe. And what did you get from that? Is that just me, or does it say something different in here?
Yeah, this one's a little different because they do have Norman Osborn as kind of a main character. He is essentially it's not set in the MCU because this is Peter essentially becoming Spider-Man under the tutelage of Norman Osborn. So he's essentially his Tony Stark. Getting him the suits, doing things like that. Coleman Domingo is playing Norman Osborn, which is great. Fantastic.
Yeah, great.
We've got Nico Minoru is going to be a character as well.
That's Runaways, yeah.
Yep, Grace, played by Grace Song. And so then you are getting Harry Osborn is going to be a main part of his friendship versus Ned, which is cool. And essentially this just feels like X-Men 97 type of thing. It's by the same producers actually, which is great. Okay. And it's going to be focused in him as a high school freshman, which typically in almost every Spider-Man film, it's like he's through high school in 1 year and then he's done. It's you're off. And it's that's your whole adventure.
I mean, in fairness, in the original comic, Peter was probably 15 when he became Spider-Man. So that's sophomore, maybe junior year, depending on. So they do kind of skip the freshman part of it, because this started life out as being called freshman class or something, didn't it? And then they changed the name to what it is.
Yeah, originally was freshman year. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. So yeah, January 29. I've known about the dates. I already have it on my calendar. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Great opportunity to get on board with the Spider-Man series kind of on the ground floor, but then to have it very kind of grassroots, because you see him swinging around in this outfit and it's fun. I've seen this jersey before. I think this is a regular piece of merch that you can buy at, at the Disney parks, or maybe even on the Disney website.
Is there a weird like professional sports team in Manhattan called the Spiders?
The Spidey, the Arachnids. But it's funny, he's got huge web shooters and like a big wire or a big tube running back to like a backpack or something, and track pants and knee pads and white sneaks. So it's a great, I look forward to adding that to my Spider-Man menagerie.
Like
figure.
I was going to say, Charlie, definitely not a good cosplay look, though.
No, I think it'd be very bulky, and it probably wouldn't be welcomed by the security people at a con, because there's too many things that look kind of dangerous on it. But
we are getting another suit in this too that they showed. It's a white and a black suit, but it's primarily the white with black in it, which is very cool.
Very similar to the Future Foundation suit, which was about 20 years ago. That was Johnny Storm had died, so Spidey stepped in and they changed the name of the group to the Future Foundation while he was a member. So that's one of the figures that they made it once and it went away, so it's not part of my collection. So would love it if they produce something like this. I'll just get a little white paintbrush and fix it up. But yeah, look forward to seeing that here shortly as we get into the new year. Well, Todd, everybody loves, as long as you're not a part of it, but everybody loves to listen to a story of the blame game. What's the blame game happening over at Sony these days?
So Sony Pictures boss, this is the headline, blames critics for Spider-Man spin-off failure. This is from Gizmodo. He says CEO Tony Vinciquerra, who's stepping down January 2nd. So he's going on a blaze of glory, burning all the bridges, blaming everyone, has some blame to lay on the future of Kraven the Hunters and others. Basically, his quote is, let's just touch on Madam Web for a moment. He said, Madam Web underperformed in the theaters because the press just crucified it. It was not a bad film, and it did great on Netflix. He said he continued leading into blame, which is always good. Says, for some reason, the press decided that they didn't want us making those films out of Kraven and Madam Web, and the critics just destroyed them. They did it with Venom, but the audience loved Venom and made Venom a mess of it. These are not terrible films. They were just destroyed by the critics and the press for some reason. Charlie, I would say other movies that were ravaged by the critics but did really well were the Transformers movies, and they survived 5 films of horrible reviews with great box office. So I don't know if
this quote sounds like a Trump speech to me. He's like, well, that's not really what people said. He's just making things up off the cuff that can be easily disproven. And, Madam Web did great on Netflix. I told you my story last week of anytime April and I fly somewhere, she downloads Netflix original movies, and I just heckle them because they're trash. They're absolutely awful. She knows it too. So
somebody just left their Netflix on and it just started playing.
Exactly. Yeah, right. I love this. Somebody was absolutely doing the laundry, or they were sitting on the toilet when Madam Web was on, and nobody was actually watching it. Look how many minutes it streamed. Yeah,
I love this though. It said under ellipsis, it says Morbius, released in 22, did not get a mention by him. So it's like he was even leaving out one of his films.
Oh my God! Well, as April and I have now covered, I think 2 or 3. We covered 2 of the Spumco films over on A Bad Trip to Movies with the Cartons. We're going to do the rest of them because we have so much fun watching them. Because I just could not even believe just sitting watching Madam Web. I felt like I was stuck in a web and I couldn't get away. It was just absolutely so dreadful. So,
wow, Dakota Johnson is just. I think she would do well as like a side character, but man, she has zero charisma,
big time.
And I don't know what her deal is. I mean, mom and dad are obviously, she comes from celebrities. It just seems like she just has no charisma. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. Had you ever seen even a snippet of those 50 Shades movies? I think I saw
some. Charlie, nobody watches them all. I just watch clips.
Yeah, just clips. All the best clips. I mean,
10-minute sections. That's all you need.
That's a horrible story. And Jamie Dornan, who was the guy in that, he's an Irish actor. He's a serious dude. But again, April and I have had this conversation a couple times recently. When you have a bad script or bad direction, a great actor is still going to be screwed. They're just not going to be able to do anything with it. So, yeah, sorry, outgoing Spumco dude. No, I'm just going to simply say no. But the
Spumco, Charlie, you don't have to worry about him. He's leaving January 2nd. Yeah, exactly. So he's, you might as well, he probably, at least he gets to I don't know if he's trying to fix his LinkedIn resume. And he puts in there the movies he's on, not a bad movie, not a bad movie, not terrible.
It was good. It was good. I swear to God. But as far as we know, and we talked about this when Craven came out, the Spumco is, it's a dead deal. They've sunsetted it.
Nothing is production. The only thing that will be left is the Spider-Verse finale,
which was
at that point, and then after that, nothing else has been announced. We do have the Sony TV content, which is maybe where they lean in with Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know if there's any other TV projects.
Gotcha. So, put a fork in it. It's done. But yeah, it's always great to have the outgoing guy and all his sour grapes. That's totally awesome. So that's at least fun to talk about.
Must have been part of his severance. Would have been part of his severance. You have to defend these films before you leave.
Yeah. Here's $25 million. Get up here and do your best impression of the fact this is not crap. All right, well, that takes us out of the news, Todd. We are headed uptown to the Geek Easy in the fanciest of Uber XYZ. The cab has pulled up, or the ride has pulled up. We've jumped in, but on Sirius XM, it's the Todd. I'm sorry, it's the Yacht Rock radio station. I know it's not your favorite, but it's playing this very familiar ad.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, cover band's playing, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. This week, Charlie, very quickly, you talked about it already. I watched that Dear Santa movie with the family. I will say this, and we were bantering a little bit about it, but that movie is enjoyable for the first, I would say, 95% of the movie is enjoyable.
Yeah.
The ending, though, holy cow. Talk about somebody that made a script change at the very end.
I think maybe coffee spilled on it. The paper dissolved a little bit and maybe some words moved around. Because, what are you doing? It's not like it was a small change. It was they just pulled something out that it's whoa.
Well, it's the rule, the rules, we always say, the rules or the what the guidelines are for a fantasy universe are very important. Because if you don't keep them together, then just everything falls apart. Then you could just say, well, then this showed up, and then lightning came out of his hands. How did that happen? It just takes away credibility of the story, which you've been invested, especially if it's an emotional moment. So this one there's one thing that Jack Black could not do as Satan, and that changed. Did it right at the last minute.
That's okay.
Boom.
Yeah, when you have anything fantasy related that it establishes rules that it doesn't stick to, it's hard to have any kind of respect for the project going forward. So they're just kind of sneaking in at the last minute. But as always, I would say watch it for yourself.
See what you think.
Watch for yourself, and definitely.
Although the Post Malone part was just ridiculous and dumb.
And that's part of a long line of stories where they're like, remember Saving Silverman, and Neil Diamond was part of it. The characters love this one musician, so they're they find a way to work the musician into the story. Or even going back to Night Court, and Harry Anderson loved Mel Torme, and he showed up all the time.
The Velvet Fog had to show up.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh well. So if you're interested in something that's cute and fun, and you get more Jack Black than you could ever hope to get, that is full of that movie. The one movie the new thing that I did watch that I enjoyed with the family was Dream Productions. This is essentially a part of the Inside Out universe or world, which is kind of fun. It's a 4-part TV series.
Okay.
And this is all about how dreams get made. So you essentially have Dream Productions. It looks like a studio lot. You've got executive producers, you've got directors, you've got the grip, you've got all these guys, and they are making the dreams that Riley has.
That sounds adorable.
It shows her.
That sounds great.
The dream she gets as a toddler as she gets older, and now she's at her older age. So it's about this one director who's been very, very successful, but is not sure how to change to make dreams more towards a tween. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. So it's all about that. It's very it's very funny. It's very cute, very creative in where it goes. There is a very funny bit about Canadian boyfriends, which when I thought that was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I highly recommend it. It's only, like I said, it's only 4 episodes long, 22 minutes each. So it's easy to get through. And it's fun. I really enjoyed it. And it was the perfect amount, like 4 episodes. Like, oh yeah, I'd want more, but I'm glad I got what I got.
Yeah, agreed. That's awesome. Yeah, I might take a peek. We're looking at something to watch tonight, so I might just take a quick because it's kind of like 4 episodes kind of makes a feature length movie almost. Just it's about
it's about a 90-minute animated film. Yeah,
there you go. Good deal. All right. Well, I somehow it's been a slow week. I know you're off. I was working, but work was slow, so I just snuck in content here and there. The entirety of the last season of What If has aired over on Disney Plus, and as we were talking about in the pre-roll, I know you had some misgivings about the previous seasons, and you'd not seen this one, so I will not go into a lot of details. I think you and I can both agree that the other 2 seasons add pluses and minuses. It was definitely a little uneven. There was a through point, certainly through the first 2 seasons, which kind of evolves through the end of this as well. But this was 8 episodes that could have been 3. Maybe 4. They had several that were throwaways that did not connect back to a main story, which would be okay if it was a well-told story, which in some of the cases it was not. The ending of it is very much okay. I mean, they took something definitely out of a page that didn't exist in the comics, which is not a bad thing. The MCU does it all the time. I love the what if concept. It was obviously modified to address the MCU in general, because to do it in the more traditional fashion for people like you and me really probably wouldn't resonate with most people, because they would look at like, well, that's not what happened in the movies. Because the overall thought was, take something from the movies or one of the TV shows and give it a little twist, and then the universe goes off in a different direction. So, and they've done a lot, like, what if Ultron Vision got the Infinity Stones? I thought that was an awesome storyline.
That was a really cool one, because it definitely felt like there was a bigger impact, something bigger, versus a lot of them felt like the change didn't feel like that big of a deal. It was like,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a couple like that in here. It was like the Thor party one. Like, what if Thor was a party boy? Okay, And so this featured a spin-off from that. But anyway, I don't want to spoil it. Todd, watch it, make your own judgment. But I get the feeling we'll probably be of a somewhat like mind about this. So, 2 big movie releases this week. We're going to talk about the one that we both saw, which is Nosferatu in the next segment. But I've been seeing trailers for this one for a while now, and it is a Bob Dylan biopic called A Complete Unknown, Like a Rolling Stone. Now, Todd, we all have musicians that we don't care for. You hate Steely Dan, very famously. I hate the Dave Matthews Band, very famously. Where do you land with Bob Dylan? What are your feelings?
I like Bob Dylan. He's a great writer. Now his actual, like, his singing ability is leaves a lot, but it's unique, and he commits to it. And I, he's obviously, I would be remiss if I didn't think that, he deserves credit for really bringing a transition between folk to modern, like, protest and things like that. So and he's revered by other musicians. So I respect him, and I like a few of his songs. But it's I would say, if you told me, if you played a Bob Dylan song for me, I'd be like, I don't know that one, because it's probably not like the top songs.
And it's funny you should mention that, because this film is set between about 1961 and 1965. And like a lot of biopics, they'll have, a series of title cards after the picture fades to black. And they gave a rundown of Dylan is still alive. He's still touring. He's been touring almost nonstop since 1975. He has made 55 albums. And he is the only popular musician to ever win the Nobel Prize for Literature. I mean, and little cap at the bottom said he did not attend the ceremony, which I'm like, that's very Dylan, because he's very counterculture. But Dylan himself, who is Robert Zimmerman from Minnesota, he's from Duluth, I believe, originally. Duluth, grew up in Hibbing. Hibbing is the hometown of one of the G.I. Joe characters, Tripwire, the mine guy. So it's just
it's basically where my dad grew up.
Oh, that's right. I forget sometimes your dad was from Minnesota. But at any rate, he arrives in New York City. He immediately meets, he goes to a hospital to visit his folk hero, who is Woody Guthrie, who has Yeah, he either has Parkinson's or ALS, and he's sitting there in the hospital with Pete Seeger, who is another folk hero who is played by Ed Norton. And it rapidly evolves into the friendship between the two of them. And Dylan getting a start. Dylan, of course, is played by the fantastic chameleon of Timothy Chalamet, who did all his own singing. All of that singing is him. They did
That's
not
great.
they did not dub in Dylan, which how hard is it to imitate Dylan?
He also sang in Willy Wonka. He knows his spot. Yeah.
I gotcha. So I liked it very much. It's long. It's like maybe 2:15, 2:30, but it didn't feel long. It told a good story, and it didn't be like, and here's Dylan at Woodstock, and here's Dylan when he was in the Traveling Wilburys. They do a little sneak-ins, like they mention the Beatles, but they don't show the Beatles. And there's a very famous.
So you said it ends in 65?
60, yeah.
Like where it.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
He plays this Newport Folk Festival, which is in Newport, Rhode Island. He goes up and plays an electric set, which is forbidden. The only thing that I thought was really bad is that the crowd was just so angsty because, oh, you have an electric guitar. They're throwing garbage at him. I'm like, really? Is that something that would happen at a folk festival, that they're going to throw garbage at somebody? It seemed a little too.
Seemed like they'd be too stoned to do that.
Yeah. Oh, come on, man. We get Ellie Fanning as his first real serious girlfriend, and then another actress whose name I don't remember as Joan Baez, who he had a tempestuous romance with. He was seeing them both at the same time. So he was, he wasn't. It's not like he wasn't a choir boy. But yeah, great movie.
There wasn't a Dewey Cox, like he ran into somebody, showed him how to do drugs, so he went into hardcore drugs.
You're
Dewey.
you're double married. Oh my goodness. So anyway, it's in theaters now. It gets my recommendation. I would say go see it. Real quick, a series starring, is it Stephanie Shu? Who? HSU. How do you pronounce that? You've seen her in other stuff.
Shu.
She was in the Everything Everywhere All at Once. She was the daughter. Is in a Peacock original 8 episodes called Laid, based on that.
I thought it was just a movie.
No, 8 episodes.
Okay.
8 episodes. And they play over the title credits. Remember that song from American Pie? Dude, this butt is on fire with passionate love. You know that song? You know the song I'm talking about.
I think James Laid.
Yeah,
that's the name of the song.
James Laid.
James is the artist, and Laid was the song. Yeah,
exactly. But anyway, it was over one of the American Pie movies, so that's where I remember hearing it. But anyway, it's funny. She is playing a character who she's cursed because every man she's ever slept with starts dying in sequence. So she's like, I slept with this guy, and he
not of an STI though.
No,
Sorry.
exactly.
Sorry, Downer.
She starts saying that her, hoo-ha is poison. So
it's like Final Destination.
Exactly. So it's definitely a dark comedy, and it ends on a cliffhanger, which means they're obviously hoping to be picked up for a second season. So we'll see it. Lastly, we were doing the Disney Plus. It's so funny to turn on Disney Plus to see one of these original Hulu movies, but a movie called Inheritance, which I think just came out. The most recognizable star is besides the dad character, who's Bob Gunton, who was the warden in Shawshank. You know the guy I'm talking about. But the other most recognizable younger star was the blonde girl in Cobra Kai, whose name I'm forgetting.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, wait. So, Charlie, I just looked up Inheritance. There's a 2020 film, Inheritance, with Simon Pegg and Lily Collins, but apparently not that one. So I have to look up Inheritance 2024.
This is brand new. But anyway, there's a crusty old billionaire that calls his 4 adult children to their mansion, which is obviously just the Hartley Mansion in Vancouver, Canada, because it looks just like the one that Lex Luthor owned in Smallville. And he says, tomorrow is my birthday. Somebody is coming to kill me, and I need the 4 of you to stay here and protect me. I'm going to lock the doors. You can't use your cell phones. You can't leave, but you're going to stay here and protect me. And then some creepy stuff starts going on in the house, and you really find out why he wanted his kids to protect him. And it's very much a Hulu. Yeah, Peyton List. There you go. Peyton something. It's very much a Netflix style film. Some elements of the supernatural. But it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable in so much that it was pretty dumb. So it was Todd's quintessential dumb fun of
they weren't reinventing the wheel.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was pretty much that. So yeah, tune in again. Hulu stuff on Disney Plus is so weird because obviously, Disney drilled down and they have that firewall to keep the, like, oh, I'm tuning in to watch, Bluey, and then I turn on Deadpool. They don't want that kind of thing to happen. So I would say it's worth a giggle, but yeah, it's nothing new.
April didn't keep the firewall up for you, Charlie. Shouldn't want you getting
she should
scared
your
nightmares.
Yeah, exactly. Falling asleep, sucking my thumb. Anyway, all right. Well, that's it for the Geek Easy. We are out of here. I've got out my Air Qantas app. It's time to get us down to the land down under because Hologram Tina and the mutants are again waiting for us to talk about a little film called Nosferatu. Let's do it.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome.
Thank you, Tina. The mutants have been gathered for a topic or game to be entertained, and this week we are reviewing, with spoilers, 2024's Nosferatu. Nosferatu is a 2024 American Gothic horror film written and directed by Robert Eggers. It's actually a remake of the 1922 silent film of the same name. There's actually been a Nosferatu from the 70s that came out as well.
Christopher Lee, right?
Yes, it's and the thing about Nosferatu, it's a non-authorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which came out like 30 years before that. So the important part to know is if you're familiar with Dracula, the characters' names have been changed, the location has changed, but the overall story is very similar. But this one's a little bit more made for film rather than an adaptation of the book.
Right.
And this film includes Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, Lily Rose Depp, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson, Simon Burney, and Willem Dafoe. It's a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. Charlie, this movie is cost $50 million. Apparently, worldwide, it's already made $40 million. So
yeah, that's pretty
it's going to be very successful. Yeah, it's a Christmas movie, which is a weird take.
We had the Dylan Dracula Christmas. So Nosfa Dylan Acula. I guess.
Yes. Yes. So this movie takes place, I would say, 1800s, like 1860s, somewhere around there.
Right. Yeah. Primary setting is a village in Germany, which may or may not be a real village. It's a seaside village, which I feel bad. I had to look. I had to do some geography on this. I'm like, boy, Germany. I'm trying to figure out where the northern part of Germany is on the Black Sea or the Baltic Sea or something, and then the Romanian Transcarpathian bit is to the south and
southwest or east. Southeast.
South by southeast, because
very remote.
Yeah. Because Nicholas Holt's character, it's a 6-week trip by horse, but it's funny because it's by horse, but later in the film you see something being transported from that area by boat. So I'm like, why couldn't they put him on a boat? I don't get it. Maybe it was a different FedEx path. They shipped the thing that needed to get shipped to somewhere where it can then be because the ship was
probably why cargo is cargo, like going by ship is probably far more expensive. He went by horse, probably pretty cheap, and cargo if you're going that way, I mean, you saw the roads they were traveling. Essentially it was a path of dirt among the windmills.
And that part I'm referring to is kind of part and parcel to the Last Voyage of the Demeter, which was a movie you and I saw a little bit.
Correct. It's a portion of that. Like the story within the Last Voyage is a portion of this, which was retold very quickly. Right. Obviously, a smarter part of the whole story, but we did get that as well. So it's essentially you've got our hero Thomas, who is he wants to advance the world. He just got married to
he's
Lily Death Rose.
He's an old school real estate agent. So and he I had to come home and look it up, but Lily Depp Rose's character, and of course she's the daughter of Johnny Depp. I don't know who her mother is, a supermodel of some kind. I don't remember who his first wife.
Helena Christensen, famous model he was with for a long time.
I didn't realize that her best gal pal was the villain in Deadpool and Wolverine with hair. I did not know that was the same woman. Did that miss you, or is it just me? her gal
Oh,
pal.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Did not know that. Okay. So getting this back on board.
Yes, please.
So newly married, he is trying to get himself a living as basically part of this real estate firm. And he makes basically, he's picked by Mr. Knock, who is the head of this firm, to visit a wealthy dying man in Transylvania. Essentially, he is looking to retire or go through hospice in Germany in their village. He has got a lot of money, and he says, if you do this, you will be set. It's fortuitous, or what do you call it? It's kept on saying it. It's
I can't remember now, but it was
a phrase.
That it means like, hey, this is your ships come in, no pun intended. This is your big career making moment. So that's basically it. Yeah.
Along the way, we do see that Ellen, his wife, played with Rose Depp, basically does not want him to go. Mm-hmm. She's obviously been afflicted by some things in the past, which we'll talk about soon. Mm-hmm. But she is essentially told, I have to do this. It's for us to be successful. Because, she's going to stay with... basically, I think they're both friends. So basically, Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Mr. Harding, who's a very wealthy shipping magnate. He's married to Emma Corrin, and they are both friends with the spouses. So they're going to stay with him. They have 2 children. And Nicholas Hoult apparently did borrow some money from Harding as well. So he feels like he has to pay him back. So that's kind of the premise why we're going to Transylvania to meet a creepy old dude. But Charlie... As we are doing the path, he takes the horse, they go. And man, this world is completely always foggy. It's dark. It's dark. Rainy.
Yep. Everything's crappy. The sun, the sun doesn't shine until the very end, which obviously we'll touch upon kind of what that means. But he's wandering down this path it's a 6-week trip, probably at best. So he's very near to the end of it. And he comes upon a village of Romani, or what some might refer to as gypsies. I'm sure that's not a very PC term, but I don't know what else you would call them.
Yeah, the Romanis. Yeah. Yep.
But they're, they don't speak the same language. It's funny. They don't speak his language. They speak in their own, but when he talks to them, they understand him, but they don't obviously choose to speak in English or German, really, because he's German and he lives in Germany. So really nobody would necessarily speak English. So you kind of
and a lot of these people have languages that have been transported, mixed from all their travels, because they tend to be vagabonds in a lot of ways. So their languages are kind of like, they probably got parts of what they're saying, I'm guessing, because there's a lot of standard, a lot of things are very intermixed. So maybe they got a few things, so it was able to at least communicate on a very low level. I think the elder guy in the town kind of understood him in a lot of ways, but he couldn't speak well enough to basically give him advice. But this village where he stays, essentially they don't want him there. But in the middle of the night, he wakes up and he finds that the village is going to basically do a ritual with a virgin on a horse, naked, to essentially
weird nudity,
kill a vampire or someone from a coffin and get staked. But then he wakes up and he thinks it was just a dream, and then he sees he's got muddy feet in the bed, which is gross.
Right, totally.
Take off your shoes.
Come on, dude. Well, you know what?
That was the most horrific thing in the world in this movie.
And he pays for it because his horse is gone.
Everyone's gone. We don't know where they went.
Yeah, the Romani are like, hey, free horse. So they're out. And so fortunately they left him his little satchel. So he's got to throw the satchel over and he continues to walk. And he finally gets to the palace of his intended client, which is Count Orlok, who is a mysterious.
He gets an Uber that shows up.
Exactly. 5 stars for that guy. But he
opens mysteriously. It's sideways.
Oh, you're right.
I don't see a coachman.
Yeah, that's right.
So, a little freaky. Yeah.
Gothic Uber. So that's right. The Gothic Uber takes him the rest of the way. And it's nighttime. And I do appreciate, especially watching April, and I just watched North and South recently. I'm always appreciated by the fact that when there was no electric lights, things were still very well lit. This was at least appropriately lit because there's one fire in a fireplace, and Count Orlok looks like he's about 11 feet tall, and you can't really see him, but he's like, Berta, you must do this, and here, eat some chicken, and drink some wine, and blah, blah, blah. You will sleep tonight. And he keeps him there. instead of just signing the document so he can leave.
Well, he first wanted to see the documents, so he laid out the documents. They talked. He did cut his finger when he was trying to eat bread or something like that. And things went downhill from there because, we never see Orlok's face clearly for most of the movie.
At this point. But there are times here and there,
Yeah, very overwhelming figure. He tells him to call him Lord in the name of his title. Lord. And he talks about how he's going to be neighbors with him. And he's like, oh, joy.
That's cool. Great. We'll come over for a barbecue. Just don't want to know what they're barbecuing. Always at night. Night barbecue. Night cheese.
Exactly. So he goes to bed and then, I'm trying to remember. Or no, wait. He freaks out, right? He freaks out. He's going, go to the fire, and doesn't he freak out and he passes out, and then you do see Orlok start feeding on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he wakes up because he's there for a bit, and he wakes up a couple of times, and on his chest near to his heart there are bite marks. He sees an upper row, and then when he looks the next day, there's a lower row. So he's like. But Orlok also has, as vampires typically do, a familiar. He has a couple of wolves who are circling around. But one day, our guy wakes up and he's wandering around the grounds, and he comes upon a door that's barricaded. And he's like, Count Orlok, where are you? And I don't know why he
thinks... the doors are locked. He's getting freaking out. Orlok says you can't leave. Right. You need to heal. Right. So he's like, I got to get the F out of Dodge.
So he's trying to find a way out. Well. Yeah. He's trying to... So he finds this barricaded door in the courtyard that he breaks his way in, and he wanders down. And I feel like the wolves would be around at that point, or maybe they are. He loses them or something. But he wanders into this main chamber that's filled with stone coffins, and up at the top is like the big one. And he's like, "Well, I got to see what's in here." Pry. And there's Orlok's body with rats, because and you see, when you do see Orlok's body, there's chunks of it missing because he hangs out with rats so much.
It's to be expected. You hang out with rats, you might get a little gnawed on it, and he does look like, if you've seen old pictures of like Vlad Tepes, he's got the mustache. You've seen like those pictures, those old. He's got the hat. He's not wearing a hat in here, but if you've seen those pictures, that's what he doesn't look like. He doesn't look like Gary Oldman. He doesn't have like the beehive hair. He doesn't have that. He definitely looks Romani in a lot of ways. If you saw the people in the village, they all kind of look the same.
Yeah, and he is Count Orlok, so he's kind of that Count look with the big coat and everything. So definitely. But at this point, Nicholas Hoult says, I don't know what this is, but I got to kill him. So he grabs a pickaxe, which I don't know if he can't remember if he used the pickaxe to open it. And
he was trying to. He's later.
And then he's gonna bring him down to traditional fashion. That's when Orlok wakes up. He smacks it out of his hand, and the wolves chase him back into his bedroom. But he sneaks, he jumps out on the ledge, and the wolves are still chasing him. And it sounds like Grandpa Simpson. It's cold, and there's wolves chasing me.
So he jumps in the water. Yeah, he jumps in the stream below.
And he does, he ends up washing up downstream, and they take him to the hospital, and they're probably like, put some leeches on him. He'll be fine. So he's laid up in the hospital because
the nuns. The nuns are healing him. And
using their nun powers. So at this point, Orlok puts himself back in the coffin. The people from UPS come, and they pick him up and crate him up. They put him on the UPS boat, and he's going to sail to Liechtenstein, or wherever the hell that little town is, where he's bought. I love it. It's the Gruenwald Mansion, which Mark Gruenwald was one of my favorite Marvel creators, so it made me think of him.
I'm sure that's what they named it after, Charlie.
Yeah, exactly. Or the other way around.
But this is happening, because you kind of get back and forth. Basically, Ellen has told him to write him every day when he's gone. He hasn't, because obviously he's basically, there's no post office, and Count Orlok doesn't provide mail concierge services. Right. And
no texting,
he was trying to kill him.
Yeah.
But we do get flashes to Ellen in her past life. Like, she is freaking out this whole time. She's having night terrors. She is sleepwalking. And you do see like a look back at her when she was younger, where essentially she had a weird out-of-body experience with some type of demon, where essentially she was found without clothes and traumatized. After that point,
Right.
she basically had a lot of issues until she found Thomas, and that's where she finally felt like she was better.
It was her missing piece, I guess, which is BS. There's no such thing as a missing piece in a relationship, but I digress. But it was for her apparently. But yeah, so she's having these visions. She's still staying with Craven and Cassandra Nova, and now the Demeter is on its way back. Thomas, but they're all Marvel people. So Thomas, the Beast, is still in the hospital, and the crew on this ship is like, there's weird stuff going on. I think it's all coming from this one crate, and they crack it open, and then Orlok is out. He's being vampire, but he's got rats with him. He's got so many rats. Oh my god, it's a rat bonanza. But unlike the Last Voyage of the Demeter movie with Dr. Dre that we saw earlier this year, this ship crashes into the German village, and when it does, now it ties it right back into historical events of the time. It's time for the Black Plague, because the few rats we've seen are now billions, and they swarm all over this town.
Yep. And that is part of why Thomas is then basically, all this while is going on. Thomas is obviously getting treatment for Ellen, all of her issues. Basically, that's when Ralph Ineson gets brought in to help basically cure her or help her with her night issues, her terror. He's basically, they're medicating her with morphine, ether, all of these things. So she stops going and traipsing, and basically she's basically almost being transformed in this dark creature, and they don't know why. And they know she had a close clairvoyant life prior to all these things happening. Thomas made things better when Thomas was away. Then obviously we feel like then she is open for kind of this kind of supernatural attacks. So they then decide to bring in professional help. From Willem Dafoe, a Professor von Franz, who basically
you get Galactus bringing in the Green Goblin. So it's all Marvel.
Yes.
This is your latest Marvel movie. Think about it.
Absolutely, yeah. So he was brought in. We find out that he was basically disbarred because he started researching the occult. But he felt like Ralph Ineson felt like this is the only way we can do some things, because he's seen tons of things. He's dealt with things that are out of the known scope of his medical skills. So they bring him in there, and that's where Willem Dafoe essentially says, I think she's being possessed by a curse or a creature. They start looking into things, and this is where it starts going ridiculously downhill. Thomas, then we pivot to Harding gets called in to basically check out the ship that landed, like you said. All of these rats now. The town is overrun with rats and plague
rats. Yeah, everybody's dying.
But we don't want to forget our Mr. Knock, Charlie. Mr. Knock, aka think of like Renfield in a lot of ways. He's playing the Renfield character, where he is essentially the Thrawn of Dracula or Orlok, doing all his bidding. He essentially goes mad, starts eating livestock. He's thrown in the basically the insane asylum.
The insane
and
room. Yes.
He eventually escapes by kind of gross.
Running around naked. Yeah. Bites some guy's throat out and escapes. And and it took me a while to remember, but this was the boss of he was the head realtor guy. He was the Century 21 guy who sent off our guy off to Romania. So
fortuitous, as he said. I think that's what he said.
Fortuitous. Very fortuitous.
Yes.
All right, so Thomas is recovered enough. The nuns say, "Here, take this and whatever." And so he's now got to make the 6-week journey home. No magic coach. Obviously, they give him a horse or something. But the plague is running rampant. And Orlok.
This was not the Black Plague. This was 1838. So the Black Plague was like turn of the millennia.
Oh, very good. Well, this is the Black Plague. This was the legacy sequel to the Black
Plague Light.
Yeah,
Plague Light.
It was. This was the Black Plague Maverick. So it's the legacy sequel. But yeah, while all this is going on, Orlok is at the Mark Gruenwald Castle, and he starts to do his thing at night. He finally comes to Thomas is home by now, I think. But
recovering. Yeah.
he's back and he's recovering exactly. But one night, Orlok does come to Lily Depp Rose and says, you have 3 days to surrender yourself to me, or I will kill your husband. And meanwhile, I'm going to kill these two little girls who are the kids of Craven and Cassandra Nova. Then Cassandra Nova gets swollen, and she's naked but gets swollen with rats, so that she gets the plague and she dies. Or I'm trying to remember, did she get the plague and get bitten by Orlok? So it's
no. So Thomas. So basically, she visits them. Orlok visits Ellen the one night.
Yeah.
Bad things happen. They get kicked out of the house. So essentially, it's just Harding and his family there.
Okay.
Harding,
that's right.
It's basically transfixed. He can't wake up, and that's where Miss Hutter
takes children
goes to see the screaming of her children. She sees her children have been killed, and then she essentially gets drained as well. And then she wakes up next to Harding's bed, just being chewed on by rats.
Oh boy. Gnarly.
So Harding is gone insane, essentially. He can't get over this.
He buries his family, and there's another subsequent scene where he, because he's rich, he's got a fancy crypt for him, but he goes nuts, and he unfortunately does the necrophilia thing with his wife, and then and everything gets set on fire. It's not a good scene for him. So they're out of the picture. The whole family is wiped out. You've got the Green Goblin and Galactus. They're like, we've got to set up they're trying to set up a big plan to go to Castle Mark Gruenwald and burn it down. And
they have to go, they have to basically, kill him. The only way they know they can kill him is if he's removed from the soil of his homeland before the cock crows. So basically before morning. And they get the crew. Well, unfortunately at that point, it's just the three of them. So it's the professor,
the three amigos.
So kind of Van Helsing and Craven. Or not Craven, Beast from the X-Men movies, go to take him on, and it was a ruse. It was actually Knock in the grave and not Orlok, because Ellen had come to the professor and said, basically, I know I'm the only way that I can stop him from killing everyone I love. And so it's a ploy. She
takes one for the team. That's basically how it goes down. So we're deep in the third act. We're at the last scene, and Orlok comes and she says, "All right, I'll do it. I'll submit." So she's, they're gonna do the do. So she's naked, and he drops his big coat and he's naked under there, but and he's feeding on her, but also having sex with her. It's a little, I couldn't quite figure it out. There was a scene earlier, and it was when Orlok stood up out of his coffin back in Romania, that he was naked and he had quite the vampire ding dong. So he's a well-endowed vampire.
I wasn't looking at that.
I wouldn't say, Todd, I wouldn't say I was looking for it, but I did see it.
You found it.
I did. I found it. But as he's feeding in there, whatever it is, this is the only scene in the movie where the sun comes out, because it's dawn. Light is flooding through this window very conveniently in their place, and she's pushing him upwards. And what happens when a vampire is exposed to sunlight? He goes full Raiders of the
drains.
Yeah, he's like Raiders of the Lost Ark. He looks like Toad where he just kind of goes and melts a little bit. So, and then it was funny, as they pull out, no pun intended, they pull the camera back. His body is all shriveled up, like his little legs turned into skeleton bones and stuff. So, but it's of course right at this moment that the three guys rush in, and she's dying, but she's like, this was the only, like you said, this was the only way to get him. And that's it. And she's finally at peace, because she had been plagued by these horrible visions her whole life. And,
apparently. Because she invited him in from miles and thousands of miles away. Somehow he was able to sense that there was someone that was meant for him, and that's what that brought them together. And essentially, they engaged.
You know what the real message is that there's somebody for everybody.
Oh yes, absolutely. The least sexiest, love triangle in the world.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to understand in a lot of ways, because we really did not see anyone who was bitten by a vampire become a vampire in this.
Right. That was not part of the. I mean, again, I even refer back, not that I like to talk about Max Landis, but I remember that his story about, the death of Superman, how it ruined comics. He said, I asked my dad once, and I think it was a vampire thing. He said, how come a vampire, blah, 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 this thing or that thing? He says, it can be whatever you want because it's not real. So when you have a vampire story, they can either be affected by garlic or not affected by garlic, or maybe the sun is a problem, or, if someone makes the sign of the cross, that's the problem. Or, they can turn into a bat or not turn into a bat. It can be whatever because it's
in 1838. They didn't have a lot of like vampire films to learn from it. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. There was
not. They had a book where somebody made a picture of a vampire on top of a lady. So forward thinking. Like that's where she got the idea, Charlie. She saw the picture like, that's what I have to do. That one picture told me what I needed to do.
It was like vampire snuff, like porn back in the day.
Well, I would say Willem Dafoe was looking at that picture for a long time. So he was getting his fill.
He reminds me of his character from Streets of Fire.
Exactly. So I don't know if it was expected that he would drain her and then she would die, or
what was the end game? Why did he want to?
So because obviously he said he couldn't do anything until she submitted of her own free will, which I totally get. There weren't a lot of rules in this. We didn't see mirrors being used. We didn't see garlic. We heard something about garlic. The Romani people were talking about garlic, so potentially that was going to be something. But other than that, we didn't hear anything about like how to kill them. Like they said, they didn't really know. They didn't have a lot of counts.
Well, and then they rolled out this whole naked virgin on a horse thing. And then the big ceremony where they all marched to the cemetery. That was a new one on me. I hadn't seen that in any other kind of vampire or anything that I can think of. And
the person they killed in the coffin
was not
like
him.
I thought it was a vampire. Was it a vampire? I don't know.
It seems like when they stabbed him, it goes blah, 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 like.
So maybe he does have the power to transfix and turn, make offspring essentially.
To reproduce.
We didn't see. Like typically in vampire films, you always get like the concubine, the sexy vampire ladies, like we did in the
Winona Ryder,
with all the ladies that were trying to get Keanu Reeves.
That's what the Weekly Planet guys called horny Dracula is what they refer to that movie as, very much so.
Well, this guy was pretty horny too, he didn't have any real horns.
And he was like I said, he was packing. I'm just saying, it was there.
He was gross. He was very gross Dracula, and it's like
he was all he was like when he was missing like bits of the back of his head. He had that great mustache,
but he wasn't. He might be immortal, but it doesn't mean that he was like.
He kind of looked rich,
he couldn't be wounded, couldn't be hurt. So the bad part of being immortal is if you start losing parts of your body over time. Not a good look.
Not a good look. So so that's the wrap on that. That's the movie. So how are we feeling about it?
So I really like his films. I think he tells a really well told, well acted story. It's a lot of emotion, a lot of tone that he sets. It's a slower working piece. And there is a lot of character interaction, which is interesting. And he's also building a world that makes you feel like, okay, I like where he's going, and it makes me feel like I'm part of it. So in a lot of ways, I really liked what he was going for, and I think I really enjoyed it because it wasn't your typical vampire film, and I couldn't go back to the original Nosferatu. You've got those version of the vampire, what he looked like back then, the creepy
with
black and white version
with the big teeth. And he was bald.
In like the 70s version. So, but I really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. Willem Dafoe, by the way, Charlie, he was in a great movie called Embrace of the Vampire. That was about 1999, 2000, where he essentially was playing the role of Count Orlok in Nosferatu. So actually, it's a great movie. He's great in it. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it.
He's backing up into the well.
So I'll give this 8. I'll give it 8 rats out of 10.
Ooh, so many rats. I'll match that score. I enjoyed it as well. It was, like I said, vastly different than the other Christmas movie I saw, which would be the Bob Dylan movie. There's no, Dylan Veratu. But I enjoyed this. I didn't, obviously we've seen, he did The Witch, right? So we watched that.
Yes. No evil goats in this.
Yeah, exactly. But he is the master of really this kind of disparate dark time period where the sun never shines, and you can smell it. You can smell everything smells like death and goat shit. You know what I mean? It's just pretty gnarly. But it's really very much a you are there kind of deal. But he doesn't really get hung up on things like, oh well, this should be subtitled because everybody's German or whatever. They just have it, they push it to the point where you can just say, okay, well, we the audience speak English, and so we're just going to hear English. So there's not that hold up. But I enjoyed it. It was a great story of sacrifice. And it was like one of those like the Smile movie where you didn't know if what she was seeing was real, because there were a few instances where she was dreaming and wasn't really happening, or you had to wait to find out if it wasn't really happening. So they kept the suspense up. This wasn't packed with too many jump scares, though. Obviously, when Orlok and all his naked ding dongness pops out of the coffin, that was a jump scare, and
that was scary.
Yeah, most definitely. Yes, his vampire wiener was very scary, I will admit. But yeah, very graphic ending with him, getting down with Johnny Depp's daughter, and then him just kind of turning into Jello at the end.
Yeah. Very sad movie. Stuff. I mean, very there weren't a lot of happy endings in this movie because basically Nicholas Hoult, what's he going to do now? Yeah. He doesn't have a job. The dude who hired him, he can't use him as a reference because he went insane. And then,
I mean, well, one thing that works in his favor is that most of the people in the town died. Wide open job market. I mean,
that's true.
Whoever is around is going to be hiring.
There's literally lots of jobs opening now because of the plague. So
exactly. So and maybe he inherits his buddy's house, or
true. We don't know who is left in the will.
Or if his buddy left, maybe he had like a big Scrooge McDuck like bin of coins. And Nicholas Hoult knew where that was. So, all right. Well, that's the show. Good times. Always having a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Todd, where do people find you out there?
They can follow me on the threads at Teoxtra at Secret Friends Unite. Also on Blue Sky at Todd Oxtra at Secret Friends Unite. Follow our Discord. Check our LinkedIn if you want to see all the things where you can reach us. I'll start adding that into I think it might be in our notes already, but I'll put the LinkedIn as well, the link tree, because that's a good way to find people. Yeah. Not LinkedIn. I mean, if you want to find me on LinkedIn, that's fine. Yeah. Me too. But yeah, Linktree is a great way to find all of the places we're at. So, and you know what? We want more people in our Discord to chat, have fun, ask us questions, which I was bad. I didn't even look if anybody gave us a question this week. So that's a bad on me if somebody did.
We're always working and improving. And this is our last show of 2024. So we're looking forward to 2025 without a doubt. But you can find me in a lot of those same places. I am on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads as at the C3 TheCeeThree. But the main action is happening over on our Discord. Please come in there, join, have fun conversations. I also run a second Discord called the United Trekkers of Michigan, which is for people from all places to just talk about Star Trek. And I'd love to have a little bit more activity over there. But with that, I will thank you again for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Blah, I want to bite your chest.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.